Hello, welcome to everydayhdr.com. My name is Blake Rudis, and today I want to talk about how to add a lens flare to your photo to make it an editable layer, so that layer can be moved and used, incorporated with the photograph. Typically, adding a lens flare goes something like this. You can go to Filter, you go to Render, and go to Lens Flare. You add where you want that lens flare to be, and you press OK, and you have a lens flare in your photograph. The problem is that lens flare that's in the photograph isn't really movable. You can't do a whole lot with it. Now, if you try to create a new layer and go to Filter and go to Render and go to Lens Flare, it's going to tell you it could not complete the lens flare command because the selected area is empty. Alright, so now what we need to do, with that new layer, go ahead and press Shift F5, which is the fill prompt. If you don't get there with Shift F5, sometimes it glitches. You can go to Edit and you go to Fill, same thing. We want to fill that with 50% gray. Press OK. We're going to drop the opacity a little bit, and what I want to do is take my brush and make a very small reference point as to where I want my lens flare to be. Make that very small reference point right here, and then increase that opacity. That just gave me, decreasing the opacity now just gave me an idea of where on the photograph I want it to be, with the photograph slightly visible below. Now, it is 4th of July right now, so if you hear some loud pops and booms going on, I'm not in some type of war zone. It's just my neighbors are setting off fireworks. Alright, so now I'm going to go to Filter, go to Render, and go to Lens Flare. So now, with that reference point, you can see it's really small right there, but with that reference point, I can drag my lens flare over to that reference point, and then I'm going to go ahead and increase the brightness a little bit, press OK. Now, got the lens flare on there. Let's change it to hard light. So now, with the lens flare on there, we can actually move this layer if we needed to. So if it wasn't in the right spot, we could pick it up and we can move it wherever we wanted to go. Now, if by chance you happen to see an edge on there, you can just go ahead and mask it out if you'd like to do it that way. One of the things I like to do with my lens flares, if I do use them, is go to Filter and go to Blur and go to Gaussian Blur. We'll make that about 4.5. That's about good. Okay, and if you don't like how bright it is, you can lower the opacity on it as well. If you just want it to just kind of shine there just a little bit, not be too overpowering, you can go ahead and do that. Now, I typically don't like to use lens flares in my photographs. If they happen during the photograph, that's fine. Otherwise, I usually just leave them out. They're more of a design element. So that's how you could use it on a photograph. But let's look at how we can use it in a design. So in this design here, you can see my lens flare is right here on this layer. I wanted to just have something to kind of set this off just a little bit. This is like a little piece of flare I was going to put on the back of a business card with the QR code right below it, about the same size. So it looked really nice with the business card. But I wanted that lens flare to be right on that eye, just to kind of set off that lighting that's going on there. So the lighting that's happening within the letters shows some kind of light source, and that being that eye right there. So what I did was the exact same process. I went and made a new layer, changed it to gray, dropped the opacity a little bit, gave myself a reference point right in the middle of that eye, increased that opacity, and then went to Filter, Render, Lens Flare, and move that right to my little reference point that I had up there. See, it's really small. It's right there. Press OK. And then change that to hard light. Now, with this photograph, I really don't like how it's in color. My lens flare is in color, and the rest of my design is not in color. So what you need to do is press Control-Shift-U, and that'll desaturate it. And then I also lowered the opacity a little bit on it and went ahead and add that Gaussian blur. Now, the other thing here is you can see that there's a little edge around my design where my 50% gray is now hovering over. So what I'm going to do is press Alt or Option and click on the mask that has the area blocked out, and just drag that right on top of there, and it'll replace it with the mask. So that's how you can make a lens flare on an editable layer. It makes it really easy to work with rather than putting it on the photograph at the very end. So again, my name is Blake Rudis with EverydayHDR.com. If you like this tutorial and you want to see others, go ahead and subscribe here on YouTube, or go ahead and over at EverydayHDR.com and subscribe on EverydayHDR.com. Thank you very much. If you're celebrating the 4th, I hope you have a happy 4th. I know our fireworks are going to be tomorrow in my state, so you guys have a great one, and I will see you next week. Have a great weekend.